Hey guys, welcome back to our daily Goals by Sam. It's Monday, June the 8th, and yes, we are doing double puzzles today. So, we are playing the daily one, which is an easy one, as usually we have on Mondays, but we're also playing the hardest difficulty one from the bonus ones we get on the newsletter. So, to remind you how to subscribe to the newsletter, we have the daily page up here, and if we scroll a little bit down, we see a subscribe title, and in it there's an email address option where you can write your email address, and you're gonna start getting puzzles every Monday. Also, some good stats from Sam and some behind the scenes. Today we have a poll for some stuff that Sam's asking about flavor text. I think I'm not somebody who reads a lot of the flavor text unless it like catches my attention from some reason. So I'm one of the people who doesn't really care for that, but I find that the flavor text is always fun when I do read it. So let's leave it at that, and let's start with the easy puzzle for today. Eve tells us that at exactly 2 instants in column C are neighboring Cheryl. Okay, so Cheryl has 2 people neighboring her in column C, Deborah and Helen, so both of those have to be innocents if that's the exact number of innocents that neighbor Cheryl. And we don't need Eve's clue anymore, so we click on it. Now Deborah says there are 11 criminals total. Okay, we don't know about any of them yet, but there's 20 people, so we know there's only 9 criminal there's only 9 innocents, right, in the whole board, and 3 of those we already know who they are. Helen says that one of the 2 criminals to the right of Nick is in column D. Okay, so Kita, who is to the right of Nick and in column D, is a criminal, and there's 2 more people to the right of Nick, so only one of them is the second criminal, and the other one is going to be our 4th innocent. So we don't need Helen's clue anymore because we tagged Oscar and Pip, and we know that only one of them is going to be an innocent, and the other person with the same color is going to be a criminal. Also, I enjoyed that yesterday somebody left a comment talking about how they use tags to simulate scenarios with people who couldn't be the same. Let me grab that up. Okay, so P Shooter says that when they're mapping 2 scenarios out, they use the top corner tags for scenario 1 and the bottom corner tags for scenario 2. And then they can see which ones are the same. And that's such a great tip. I love it. I think I might implement that in the future. I'm gonna have to practice though, because since I'm not used to thinking that way, it's gonna be hard for me to reprogram my mindset when looking at the text. But it's very interesting to see how people play it differently always, so I love it. Keep the tips coming. It might not only help me but also help other people who read the comments, so I love it. Thank you, P Shooter. Now let's get back to the current puzzle. So Kita now says that 2 of the 3 pilots have a criminal directly below them. Where are all the pilots? Okay, Deborah is one of the pilots who definitely doesn't have a criminal below her. So that means that the other 2 have to be the 2 that have criminals below them, right? So we know that Logan and Franco both are criminals, and we don't need Kita's clue anymore. Now Franco says there is only one innocent above Kita, and that person is Eve, who is already above Kita and already an innocent. Now the other 2 people are gonna be criminals, and we don't need Franco's clue anymore. Ivan says now that there's only one innocent in their column, so that's Eve as well, which makes Zola a criminal too. We don't need Ivan's clue anymore. Zola says that they're the only criminal cop. Where are the other cops? We have Vince. No other cops, but we know that Vince is definitely not a criminal, and we have 4 innocents now. Vince says there are exactly 2 criminals to right of Franco. Well, one of them is Ivan, so this second one has to be Gabe. Gabe now says there's an odd number of instances neighboring Logan. Logan has Helen and a second innocent who is gonna neighbor Logan in row 4 here, who's either Oscar or Pip, because both of them neighbor Logan, and that makes 2. 2 is an even number, so we need a third person to make and not number, and there's only Karen left, so Karen is the third instant neighbor in Logan. We don't need Gabe School anymore. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're gonna have a sixth innocent here. Karen says there are more criminals in row 2 than row 4. We have 3 criminals in row 2, so we couldn't have 3 in row 4. And we have 1 already, that's Kita. We're gonna have a second one here, who's either Oscar or Pip. So we couldn't have a third one. That makes Nick an instant. Now we don't need Karen School anymore. Nick says there are a total of 4 instants in rows 3 and 4. So if we sum row 4 and row 3, we have 4 instants. So far, how many do we have? We have Karen and Nick, that's 2. We're gonna have a third one who's either Oscar or Pip. So we need a fourth one, and there's only Jane left besides those people to make 4 instants. We don't need Nick's School anymore, but how many instants we have already? We have 3 here, 6, 7, and 8. So only 1 more instant among these 4 people here. Jane says that each column has at least 2 criminals. So we need a second criminal in column C here, which currently only has Logan, and there's only 1 more person left, Pip. So Pip has to be a criminal, and that makes Oscar an instant. Now, Oscar says that exactly 2 criminals in row 5 have an instant directly above them. So there's 1 criminal in row 5 here who doesn't have an instant above them. Zola doesn't have an instant above them, so 2 criminals in row 5 have to have innocents above them. And of course, Vince is not an innocent. Of course, Vince is not a criminal. So that means that we need 2 criminals yet to have innocents above them. And those criminals have to be Sophia and Uma, right? So we can have that total too. We don't need Oscar School anymore, but now we know that Barney and Cheryl are opposites because we still need 1 more innocent. Uma now says there's an equal number of instants in columns B and C. So column C has 3 instants, which means that we need the third one in column B. And there's only Cheryl left, so Cheryl is an instant, which makes Barney a criminal. And we are done with this puzzle. So that's great. That's great. I love it. Took my sweet time there, and that's so I can explain as best as I can the puzzle. But we're gonna jump right into the evil one for this week. So June 8th, the special one is an evil one. Let's see if this is harder than the brutal one from yesterday. Let me just restart the timer here and start with Salil telling us there are no instants below Daniel who neighbor him. So there's 2 people who neighbor Salil below Daniel, and none of those are instants. That makes Megan and Xavier both criminals, and we don't need Salil School anymore. Megan now says that all instances in column C are connected. Okay, we don't know about any instance in column C, so let's leave that there. Xavier says that only 1 of the 3 criminals in column C. Okay, now we know there's 3 criminals total in column C, which makes 2 instances, right? So those 2 have to be connected. Now, only 1 of the 3 criminals is Salil's neighbor. So Salil has 3 people neighboring him in column C. Only 1 of those is a criminal. Could that criminal be Kita? Nope. Because if that were so, that would make the other 2 people who neighbor Salil innocents, and we would have our both innocents in column C not connected, Lila and Wanda. So we need Kita to be an innocent and Lila and Wanda to be opposites. But what we also know now that since there's only 2 innocents in column C, and our second one is gonna be here, that makes Gus and Claire both criminals. And we don't need neither of these clues anymore. Kita now says that there are exactly 2 innocents above Vicky. Where's Vicky? Okay, there's 4 people above Vicky. Half of them are innocents. Claire says there are more criminals in row 3 than row 5. Okay. And Gus says there's only 1 innocent in row 3 neighboring Ollie. There's 2 people in row 3 who neighbor Ollie. Only 1 of them is going to be an innocent, so we tag them with the same color. So they are opposites. And we don't need Gus's clue anymore, but now we pair that with Claire's clue telling us there are more criminals in row 3 than row 5. And we know that there's at least 2 criminals in row 3, right? How does that go? There are more criminals in row 3 than row 5. Well, we couldn't have... If we make Wanda a criminal and Lila an innocent, there's already the same number of criminals in row 5 than row 3. There's 2 and 2. So we know that this can happen. We have to have Wanda be an innocent and Lila be a criminal. And we can't even have Terry or Vicky be criminals, because any of them being a criminal, I guess we could have 2 criminals, because we're gonna have 3 in row 3. We just couldn't have both of them be, but they could be opposites. So let's not mark them yet. One that says there's an odd number of criminals neighboring Vicky. Okay. And Lila says there's 2 criminals in column A with a criminal to the right of them. Huh. Okay, so let's think about this. There's 2 innocents above Vicky, right? So there's gonna be 2 innocents here and 2 criminals. Let's say this is the scenario. There's also 2 criminals in column A with a criminal to their right. So that means that whomever, it couldn't be this. I mean, it couldn't be this, because we know that Isaac and Jason are opposites. So if Jason is a criminal, that would force Terry and Vicky to be criminals. Where am I going with this? Where am I going with this? If we make Jason an innocent, we also don't have one more criminal with a criminal to their right. Right? Because although Isaac is a criminal, he's gonna have an innocent to his right. And we're only gonna have 2 more criminals here. But we know there's an odd number of criminals neighboring Vicky. That's an important thing to pay attention to. Let's think. Both about the fact that Vicky being a criminal forces Terry to be an innocent and vice versa. Because there couldn't be any more than 2 criminals in row 5. So we couldn't have these 2 people be a pair of criminals like Lila says there is. If one of the pair of criminals is Ollie and Penny, that would force Terry to be a criminal, because Vicky needs an odd number of criminals neighboring her. There's a lot of things to consider here that I'm having trouble with. So this is gonna be a fun one to watch, I hope. We know for sure that we couldn't make Jason a criminal, because even if... Let me try to make Jason work as a criminal in any case. If we make Jason a criminal, then there's no way for there to be 2 criminals in column A with criminals to their right, because Terry and Vicky couldn't be that pair, and there would only be 1 pair, because Jason is taking one of the criminal spots in column B. So Jason has to be an innocent, actually. Pretty sure of that. And that makes Isaac a criminal. Now, Isaac gives us a new clue. There are exactly 2 instances below Benda. So Benda is definitely not one of the 2 instances above Vicky, right? So Benda is, but Vicky could be an instant. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Vicky could be an instant and she would be below Benda. If Benda is an instant as well. Huh. What we know though. What do we know? Could Vicky be an instant? Let's try that. That would make Penny and Frida both criminals. Because they are also below Benda. And that will make Benda an instant. Now we would need Evie and Ollie to be criminals so that we can have 2 criminals in column A with criminals to their rights. And we will need Terry to be a criminal as well so that Vicky can have an odd number of criminals. Then, if Vicky is not an innocent, if Vicky is a criminal, that would force Terry to be an innocent, first thing. Second, it would make Frida and Penny opposites. But it would also make Benda a criminal. Because the 2 instances above Vicky would be Jason and either Frida or Penny. Now, that would force Anna to be a criminal so that we could have our 2 criminals with criminals to their rights. And we couldn't have Ollie and Penny be the pair because that would give Vicky an even number of criminals neighboring her. So what we know here is that Evie and Frida are for sure one of the pair. The other pair might be Ollie and Penny or Anna and Benda. Does that make sense as I explained it? Because in both scenarios, let's try to use the tip. Let's try to use the tip that Pea Shooter gave us. If we make Vicky an innocent, that will make Terry a criminal. Would it? If we make Vicky an innocent, that would make Penny and Frida both criminals, right? Because the 2 instances below Benda are Vicky and Jason. In that case, we need a second instant above Vicky, so that will have to be Benda. Now, we still need 2 criminals with criminals to their rights in column A, so that would be Evie and Ollie. And because of Ollie and Penny, we will need Terry to be a criminal because Vicky needs an odd number. Benda would then not matter what she has or they have to their left. Now let's try the opposite. Let's try to make Vicky a criminal. If Vicky is a criminal, we need a second innocent below Benda, right? I don't know if I'm gonna leave my coughing. My coughing. I don't know how to say it. I'm coughing in English with my accent, but I don't know if I'm gonna leave it in the video. If there's cuts, then it's because I'm coughing. This is fun. Okay, we made Vicky a criminal here. So that makes it so that there has to be a second innocent here below Benda, and that would force Benda to be a criminal as well. In that case, because we have opposites here, Frida and Penny, and Vicky being a criminal forces Terry to be an innocent, That would force who's to the left of Benda to be a criminal as well. So we have a pair of criminals here. Now we have only one pair of criminals here on the top, right? This is not a pair of criminals. The second pair of criminals would have to be below Benda. And it couldn't be Penny and Ollie because that would render Vicky not with an odd number of criminals neighboring her. So that would make Penny an innocent and Frida and Evie criminals. Now, it doesn't matter where Ollie is in this situation. But what we have learned with this sort of tagging, to me, is very confusing, but it does work. But it's very confusing because you gotta learn to ignore what's in the other side. On the other side. Like, maybe tape it down. So that we ignore it as we're doing it, but we compare it after finishing it. Anyway, the same role is applied to Evie and Frida in both scenarios. So Evie and Frida are for sure criminals. And now we know that the tip works. We clear both tags. And now we know that Penny and Benda are opposites. And that Vicky and Penny are opposites. How does that work for me? Do we look at Vicky's total? If we make Penny an instant, does that ever work? If we make Penny an instant, that will make Benda a criminal. And Penny being an instant will make Vicky a criminal because they are opposites. And Vicky being a criminal makes Terry an innocent. Then it doesn't really matter what Ollie is, but what matters is that Anna has to be a criminal. Right? If we try the other scenario, we make... Now I'm gonna use it again. I got hooked. If we make Penny a criminal now, that would force Vicky to be an innocent. That's our second innocent below Benda. But we need a second innocent above Vicky. That has to be Benda. And now, because Penny is our criminal left, that will force Ollie to be a criminal so we can have a pair of criminals. And that would force Terry to be a criminal so Vicky can have an odd number. Now it doesn't matter what Anna is. So is Ollie... It doesn't matter what Ollie is in Vicky's scenario. Actually, there's an odd number of criminals neighboring Vicky might mean that we need one. Is 0 considered an even number? I think Sam mentioned that in one of the newsletters some time ago, that 0 might be considered an even number, so there has to be at least one criminal neighboring Vicky. And that criminal has to be Ollie then. Let's test it out. Yeah. Okay, I was right. Ollie says there's an equal number of innocents in rows 1 and 3. And we know the total for row 3. 1. So if we know... Do we know that there's gonna be an innocent here in row 1? And that it couldn't be Daniel? Yeah, because... Is it? If it is Benda, that will make Anna a criminal because Benda is a single innocent. And if Benda is a criminal, then we need Anna to be a criminal so that we can have our scenario So that would make Daniel an innocent. So I'm not really sure. Not really sure where I'm going. There's a number of criminals neighboring Vicky. We don't need that clue anymore now, do we? Or do we not? I might clear the tags again because they do really confuse me when I'm not exactly keeping track of them. Oh yeah, because the thing is that we couldn't have, let me make Penny a criminal. That would make Benda an innocent, right? This is our two criminal pairs, Evie and Frida, Ollie and Penny. That would also make Vicky an innocent. But Vicky also needs a third criminal neighboring her. Now, our single innocent for row 1 is Benda, so that will make Daniel a criminal and Anna an innocent. Oh, Anna a criminal as well, because Benda is an innocent. If the case was opposite, I love this. If Penny were an innocent, that would make Harry an innocent as well, because Vicky needs an odd number. Vicky would be a criminal because of Benda. Penny will make Benda a criminal because of Vicky. And now this is our pair of, no, we don't have a pair of criminals here. Penny is an innocent. So our second pair would be Anna and Benda, which would make Daniel an innocent. So how does this work? Who's the same in both scenarios? Nobody. That makes it hard to compare. There are exactly two innocents above Vicky. The unique number of instances in rows 1 and 3. There are exactly two instances below Benda. Two criminals in column A have a criminal directly to the right of them. Yeah, there's 1, 2. Or 1, 2. Who's always the same? We know that Vicky and Terry are opposites now. Or do we not? Can they ever be the same? No, they can't. I think I have to approach this differently. I'm so hyper focused on the new mechanic I learned, the new tagging system. Let me go back to the old one and see what I find. Penny and Terry are the same. Penny and Vicky are opposites. And Penny and Benda are opposites. So it all depends on Penny, is it? Does it all depend on Penny? Does that make Anna and Daniel opposites? No, because Benda could be an innocent or a criminal. What about Hall? Poor Hall is being left. I'm gonna go through it again. There are more criminals in row 3 than row 5. That's okay. I don't need that anymore, though. There are exactly two instances below Benda. Yeah, either Penny or Vicky. Two criminals in column A have a criminal directly to the right of them. Maybe that's it. There's an equal number of instances in rows 1 and 3. So we know there has to be an innocent. There's an odd number of criminals neighboring Vicky. And there are two innocents above Vicky. So let's make Penny an innocent. That would make Vicky and Benda both criminals. And that will make Anna a criminal. So Daniel would have to be an innocent. If it was the opposite and we made Penny a criminal, that will make Benda and Vicky innocents. And that will make Daniel a criminal. So Benda and Daniel are opposites, which means that Anna is always a criminal. Can I ever make Anna an innocent? If I make Anna an innocent, that makes Benda a criminal, which would make Penny an innocent, and then we don't have enough criminals with criminals to their rights, with Anna being an innocent. Right. So Anna is a criminal then. There are 4 innocents on the edges now, we know. One of them is Leo, second one is Wanda. The third one is gonna be up here in row 1. Either Benda or Daniel. I guess we do know that Terry and Vicky are both opposites, because if both of them are innocents, then of course we would have way more innocents on the edges. But if both of them are criminals, we have too many pairs of criminals in column A and B. So we know that Terry and Vicky are opposites, so that makes 1, 2, 3 innocents on the edges, 4 with Benda and Daniel, which makes Hall a criminal. Hall now says there's an odd number of criminals neighboring Ollie, and we know that Ollie has Isaac as a criminal neighboring him, and a second criminal here in row 5, so that's 2. That's not an odd number. We need Penny to be a criminal as well, and we knew that Penny being a criminal makes Benda an innocent, that makes Daniel a criminal, but Penny being a criminal also makes Terry a criminal, which makes Vicky an innocent. Okay, that was hard, but that was also really fun. 26 minutes again. It's the same time as yesterday, and probably the same time I've had in a puzzle before this in the last week. So this is interesting. Then my time is always 26 minutes. What does that mean? But it was really fun to try the new technique that Pea Shooter taught us. I'm really glad that they mentioned that and that I was able to apply it first try. It was really useful, and it does take some getting used to, but it is really useful. I hope you guys appreciate the video. I'll leave you here for today and see you tomorrow for more Ghouls by Sam. Bye bye.